Okay, so it looks like we are live on YouTube. I'm here in my new flat in Hove, and I need a bit more lighting actually on my face because I don't know if anyone can see me really. Yeah, it's a little bit dark. Okay, anyway, yeah, I'm not sure how well it's coming out. It looks like there's a bit of a grey band at the top there. Anyway, hopefully it's not too bad. And let me just adjust that, close the door. I've had quite a peaceful kind of a week, really. Been just settling into my new flat. I'm moving out of a community where I've been living for a long time, little by little. Kind of still going to be there for a couple of days a week, and you know, just getting some stuff together in Brighton. I've started this Man Up Brighton group, and we're doing a bit of cold training. It's a meetup group, and I'm quite enjoying that. And I'm also taking a little bit of time just to start to get my book on bioenergetics together. I started writing a bit more of that. And I'm just hoping, I'm not so busy really over the rest of February. I've got a workshop this weekend, and then the rest of February and March and quite a chunk of April. I'm not so busy, and that's quite nice really. So I'm hoping to get some more good downtime around here, and to be able to get down to some writing and get down to some longer projects. Stuff that I really want to get together but never seems to get together when I've got too much kind of stuff to do. You know, it's like communal living can be pulling me in a lot of directions all the time, and that's got its own challenges which can be useful, but at other times it can be useful to really have space for yourself to focus on what you want to do, and I'm at a point like that at the moment. Anyway, I hope if you tuned in, you've been having a good week. I hope you're getting your bioenergetics going. I've been doing, in the last 8 days, I've done 3 10-kilometer runs, which is something I've never fucking done in my life. I've never been a runner. I had bad ankles when I was a kid, and that was like I had to have these operations on my Achilles tendons, and you know, I always assumed I'd never be able to ski, never be able to run, never be able to do stuff like that. And so it was only a few years ago, living in Brighton, I got really motivated somewhere to do little jogs like 3 or 5K along the seafront in the morning. And I found you get such a good energy rush off it when you've completed. You know, if you give this sort of dopamine burst through the system, that was really cool. And then at some point I did a 10K one, and then I left it for quite a long time. And now I've done 3 more 10K ones in the last week. So my body doesn't really quite know what the fuck's going on, basically, you know. And but this one I felt a bit stronger in. I did one yesterday morning, the 3rd one in 8 days. I felt a bit stronger in it, a little bit. So I'm going to try and keep that up, and just generally testing myself and pushing myself a bit, especially physically, you know, especially physically. Hey, Lujas, nice to hear from you, man. Got the spiritual boot camp starting again in a couple of days. I remember you came to that last year. At least I'm pretty sure it was that. I hope you're doing good over in the Faroe Islands. I'm kind of, I feel like I'm returning a bit to normal society, so to speak, having been in the community, you know, for like in the community for like 16, 17 years. It will be 17 years in March. And it's like coming back out into the world, and it's really exciting, actually. It's really exciting, which I kind of feel is probably different than it is for most people, who probably, a lot of people I meet seem to complain about the world all the time, and the normal society and city life and things like that. But I'm really enjoying it at the moment, and just seeing what kind of stuff I can get up to. It's kind of curious. I also noticed, because I started some of this, I've been, you know, when I've done these 10K runs, it's quite cold out. It's about 5 degrees in the early morning in Brighton, especially on the seafront, a little bit wind chill there. And I just wear a vest and just chug down there. And so, you know, it's really fucking cold, but I'm getting into the cold. You know, this cold training is good stuff. It's a big teacher for me, the cold. Discomfort and cold are my biggest teachers at the moment. And it's really, there's something very deep in there, in this experience of cold. I remember this Wim Hof guy, the Iceman, they call him, you know, he started to talk about it about, I don't know, 5-10 years ago. I heard about him about 4 or 5 years ago. A friend of mine, Joe, was telling me about him. and I checked it all out, and I didn't want to do the whole course, but partly because I didn't want to fork out 200 euros for a video course. But I think there is definitely something in it. And he said at some point something along the lines, but you know, that there's an immense sort of spiritual power in the cold, and I've discovered that to be the same. I've discovered that statement to be true. You know, there's something about really being in the cold. What it does for me is it pulls me much more deeply in my body. I have to breathe more deeply through the mouth, down into the gut, and it establishes something there, you know. And then I discover that I'm actually okay in a situation where normally I'd think, well, I'm not okay, you know, or where my mind is still panicking and freaking out. And when I was doing the 1 hour cold training bursts about a year ago, I would sit outside, you know, just in my boxer shorts. It'd be about -3, sit in the fucking field and do this breathing down into the belly. We'll do the chakra breathing basically. And you come out of it, you know, it's like hell to start. It's hell for the mind. You know, the body just gets cold. It gets cold. It gets cold. You know, for the mind, it's like freaking out, and you cannot do this, and and this reason why you can't do this, and this reason why you can't do this. You really get to see your own mind. You know, you really get to see your own mind and what kind of madness it gets up to. And if you keep on breathing and feeling your body, you're actually okay. And when I looked a little bit at the Wim Hof version of cold training, I was not, it seemed a bit more like a shamanic technique, where my perception was it was a bit more taking you out of your body. And what I've enjoyed about this cold training is this idea of coming right back into the body, really feeling yourself in your belly. And that can give you a lot. That can give you a lot. And so I'm quite a fan, and I've still got resistance as well. I mean, that's the nature of it. It's just pure fucking resistance, basically. But I do charge around Brighton in my t-shirt when it's usually between 5 and 10 degrees now. Cycle around Brighton in my t-shirt, and you know, go out in up to, you know, above zero, just in my t-shirt, and it hits you like a shock. And I can see my mind not wanting to do it, but I just have to breathe into it, and it works. You know, just breathe into it, and you're actually okay. So I'm interested in this stuff. I've started this Meetup Brighton group, and that's going on, predictably enough, in Brighton. It's called Man Up, actually. It's on Meetup, Man Up Brighton. And I made it for men and women who want to work with the male side, you know, with the masculine side. And we'll be doing some exciting challenges. We had our first Meetup, 4 guys, including myself. We did some bow and arch on the freezing cold Brighton seafront on Friday, and then jumped in the sea, which was a bit brave because the current was quite strong. I was a little bit worried I was going to get pulled, or one of the guys was going to get pulled out. Wouldn't have been a very venerable start to the Man Up group to have a drowning. And I would feel pretty shit about that, to say the least. But that didn't happen. And then we went to the sauna for an hour, and then went out for a pint, and that was good fun. So I enjoyed that, you know, just as a sort of social occasion. And we're going to do some more of that stuff. We're going to do some more of that stuff. Not this Friday, as I'm running a workshop at Lila, but running spiritual boot camp. But Friday afterwards, I'm going to do cold training, chakra breathing on the seafront for an hour, see how people get along with that. Quite a lot of guys RSVP and say they're coming, and I'm just intrigued to see how many actually show up when it comes down to it. It's also a challenge for me. It's also a challenge for me to say 6:30, okay, let's get down the seafront in this freezing cold weather and start doing the chakra breathing. Hey, I just used to jump in the sea some years ago, some friends in all kinds of weather. Yeah, it's powerful, hey? It's fucking powerful. I bet it's cold in the Faroe Islands as well, bloody hell. But like, it's very powerful, the cold. It's very, you know, it's like, what's so amazing to me as I get older is that we live in this world with so many different forms of comfort, and none of them are really very good for us on a deeper level. None of them are much good for us, you know. It's just kind of amusing in a way. You know, and what the average person really needs to have a fulfilling and a fulfilling life, where you really feel like, yeah, fuck, I'm alive and I'm doing stuff, is a lot of discomfort, actually. And this is something that just totally hasn't been grasped by our culture. You know, I look back at my dad's generation, of course, it was very uncomfortable a lot of the time, and they had war and, you know, and then and poverty and misery, violence everywhere and stuff. And of course, your whole fantasy must be comfort, 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 comfort. Please give me some comfort, for fuck's sake, you know. But the reality that I experience now is that comfort is an absolute problem. You know, it's an absolute issue, and it's a huge issue. I think, you know, if our civilization progresses, and but it's by no means a given for me that that will happen, but this will be soon recognised. I think there's talk, you know, there's no one in the mass media that says anything remotely interesting. And in fact, if they did, I probably wouldn't know, because I gave up on it years ago. I stopped watching telly 20 years ago, and I'm not a total hermit, but nevertheless, I'm not really in that scene. But on YouTube, there are a lot of talkers around now, and I think that is really where the new generation of thinking will come from guys like Jordan Peterson and other people putting stuff out there. And I think what we're going to discover, one of the biggest things we're going to discover, is that comfort is a major fucking problem to life. You know, that you just don't need a lot of comfort. And what you do need is intelligent levels of discomfort in your life to stay healthy, to stay active, to feel good, to be fit. Comfort is the number one problem. It's the number one problem. This comfort addiction and the sheer amount of comfort that is just around these days is like staggering. You know, all the different things that you can divert your mind with, all the little comfortable, cozy little things. I saw a van today outside. It was a DFS. They're like a big furniture sales people in it was right outside my flat, and they're a big furniture sales company in the UK, you know, and it got delivering comfort. And I felt like spray painting, don't bother, mate, underneath it, or taking a photo and doing something like that, because at some point people are going to realize comfort is a major fucking problem in our culture, and it just weakens the people in the culture. And I really don't believe that. I really think the West is in some kind of quite major crisis around stuff like this, but it really is. I was listening to our show, because I regularly still listen to our show, and I've been listening to a Dhammapada discourses. I'm up to about volume 3, volume 4 now. And he did say something which, you know, I'd heard a lot before, but it really struck me that, you know, what's happening is that you've got the West traditionally, you know, the capitalist, outgoing, you know, let's get stuff done in the world kind of people, and the East traditionally, who are meditative, you know, let's do it tomorrow, and you know, they're busy with enlightenment or improving their karma. And what's happened in the world is that there's been a shift, so that the value system of the West now, and Osho was saying this back in the bloody 80s, you know, and it's really come true 30, 40 years later. You know, the value system in the West is to be meditative and doing yoga and God knows what. And the value system in the East is to be outgoing and capitalist and to be making a ton of cash. And the sad thing is, there's been very little synthesis in any of this. There's very little synthesis, you know. So we still don't have, you know, what Osho kind of wanted, which was the Zorba the Buddha kind of culture, you know, where people were developed so that they could be meditative, but they could also be totally outgoing and extrovert. And that is still really missing in both sides. You know, the East have become, but you know, East are going to take over, as I see it. East will take over, and the West will kind of go all meditative and peaceful and skint probably. And well, this may well happen, but still in that, there's not really been the synthesis that Osho was talking about. And I think, you know, this is a big deal. This is something that's really missing in our culture. I like what this guy Brian Rose is doing. He looks like to me like he could do with a bit of bioenergetics, to be honest. I'd love to teach him a bit sometime. But with his London Real channel, I think he's a good guy, and he interviews people from, you know, very strong meditative background and real hard-nosed businessmen. So he's creating a kind of synthesis, and I think what he's doing is good. Stefan, hi Stefan. I've been doing bow and arch and belly massaging, and I am feeling more anxious. Fear is coming up in situations where I never felt it before. Is it normal, or do I need to do something to realize it? I mean, what it sounds to me, it's like I'm a scared little child again. Yeah, I mean, what it sounds to me like, man, is simply that you're becoming more aware, you know. I don't know, you know, we're not doing one-to-one session or something, but it sounds to me like you're becoming aware of situations where you're afraid, where probably you were afraid before, but masking it over. And this is very common. You know, I did this for a long time. I did this and still can do, masking over anxiety and not allowing myself to be self-aware, even like an autopilot program has come in and I'm just kind of armoring myself in protection. And, you know, I'm not even allowing the real feeling that's there in a social situation. So that's what it sounds like to me, which is healthy, basically. awareness is the first step often. People often, doing therapy or body-based stuff like this, bioenergetics and emotion expression, and the first thing they realize is like, fucking hell, I'm tense, and looking back, sometimes it was like, well, fucking hell, I've got all these issues, but I never realized I'd got, I was just drinking and doing my usual thing, and this is a big, this kind of shock is a big part of the process. It's the first thing, this awareness, shit, I've got stuff to work on. I thought I was just fine. When people ask me how I was, I always said fine. And now I realize actually I'm not fine. There are things going on under the surface. So that's what it sounds like it is. And if you think it's not that, then let me know, write in. But it sounds to me like a classic case of just becoming more aware of what's going on underneath. And that, of course, is the first stage to healing and processing and moving deeper and coming beyond the anxiety. The bow and the arch is an excellent long-term treatment for anxiety. It's the best treatment I know, actually. There's certain specific treatments for certain specific kinds of anxiety drawn from other schools of therapy around there. A lot of stuff from behavioral therapy, for example, where you start to really confront in an intelligent way what you're afraid of or what's creating anxiety in you, and you learn to breathe and feel your way through it. Scared of spiders, you have to go and put a tarantula next, it's a foot away from you, and you breathe and you feel, and at some point you relax a bit more with the tarantula, whatever, this kind of principle in behavioral therapy. But, those kind of specifics aside, the vast majority of people with high anxiety have got a lot held in their lower back and the backs of their legs, in my experience, and often also around the shoulders. And those are three areas that the bow and arch will work, thoroughly over time. So I would say, man, you're doing good, and I would stick to the bow and arch, stick to it. I'm planning to do some more longer bow and arch videos soon, where I'm trying to step up my video production a bit and make it a little bit more professional. I'm getting some advice from a guy who came to one of my workshops, who's quite a video filmmaker, and I want to get some lighting. I'm doing some lighting now. I'm in a bit more background instead of this boring beige wall, but that's how it is in the new flat at the moment. But I'm planning to do some more bow and arch videos. I'll do a 5 minute, 6 minute, 7 minute, and this kind of thing, so that people can, put them on and go through it. Anyway, yeah, thanks. No worries, Stefan. No worries. It's the first step. It's the first step with realizing that we've got this anxiety. That it's not easy for us to do certain things, and that there's a challenge there. So if anyone else watching has got a question, feel free to put it out. I'm on a Windows thing with a plug-in webcam, and it looks like it's not quite as good to me as certainly the lighting's not as good as my usual setup in the pine cabin where I'm normally doing these videos from, with my old MacBook, which seems to have a better camera on it. I don't know why the Windows laptops never seem to have a good webcam on them anyway. I don't know. I didn't research it super much, but they never seem to. And then these plug-in ones are a bit up and down. Anyway, I'm looking forward to the next couple of months to getting some good downtime, relaxation in, and I want to start to commit to creating this bioenergetics book. It's funny for me, it's like, I know once I get stuck into a project, then it really happens, and I put a load of headings, and I've copied and pasted some other stuff from it, and then 2 days ago I did start to write some introduction and just get into it, really sticking it out there a bit, what's wrong with people and what we can do about it, And of course, I want to make the book immensely practical. It'll have a bit of a wordy introduction, of course, and build up the woe a little bit. But I really want to get into explaining exercises in a coherent manner with diagrams and pictures. And I think that will be something I can really feel proud of in my life. But I've created something like that because there's very little resource out there in literature or on video anywhere. If you're interested in bioenergetics, there's very, very little. It's one of those things that could almost fall off the planet, If it wasn't for a very high profile coach in America called Elliot Hulse, who got into bioenergetics, I mean, it would just about have fallen off, I think, And there's still practitioners around, but it's like, we're curious, something so powerful and with the potential for so much transformation, and also quite intelligent and logical in its own way, that it could just kind of fall away when you consider that mindfulness or yoga or whatever, nothing wrong with those things, are coming on the up and up. You know, something like bio could literally have fallen away. Anyway, sucking exercise. Is it fine to lie down and do the sucking reflex without any bodily movements? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I mean, the bodily movements serve a couple of functions. One function is that they can also activate areas of the body, because the sucking reflex works because we don't nowadays suck, basically, but when we're born, it's a very powerful reflex to suck on the mother breast, you know, sucking in nourishment, you know, and when that reflex is blocked, you know, it of course affects us psychologically, our capacity to take in nourishment, our capacity to take money in, you know, to take friendships in, to accept ourselves as loving human beings, whatever, you know, it affects it. And you can reinforce that by making sometimes contracting the anus is a good one, little contractions as you suck, or flicking the legs. It helps to keep people a little bit more in their body, but it's absolutely not necessary to do it. You know, the sucking is the main part, and it's fine to just do the sucking. It's also another great little exercise for insomnia, I find. You know, see quickly, because the thing with the sucking is it just puts your brain chemistry back to like about six minutes old. Basically, it's simple as that. You know, it puts you back to your how you were when you were born. Just this action of sucking, it sets your brain chemistry back there, because people just haven't done it since that time, or certainly since they came away from the mother's breast. So, you know, it's like one of those amazing movements. It's a lovely part of bioenergetics. You know, some of it is really working there, getting the muscle system open, and some areas of bioenergetics is using certain primal reflexes that we had as little children or whatever, stimulating them again to reset our brain chemistry and allow again that starts to allow stuff which is unnatural in us, that's come in since we were a kid, muscular holding patterns, to move out and give us an experience of some kind of primal bliss. Sucking exercises are great. Sucking exercises are great. Likewise, I enjoy exercises where you take a mental form of resistance or block and make it physical. You know, this is another great principle in bioenergetics that I'll be writing about in the book. Is the sucking exercise from Lowen or someone else? I learned it from the Brazilian school, Milan and Pavita. I've not seen it in Lowen's books, but I've only really read the one with exercises in it, and I don't remember it in there. You know, it's like a different area of bioenergetics. You know, there are several distinct areas of it, and it's good to be kind of familiar with all of them, I think, as a therapist. So you've got, yes, the body postures from Lowen and this kind of thing, and then you've got things like these primal reflexes, and then you've got stuff like, you know, like I'm saying, making mental resistance physical. People are kind of, you know, when you're running group therapy, sometimes you can tell the participants are kind of got the hump. There's a little fifth column forming somewhere during tea breaks, and they're all complaining, you know. And something you can do is get everyone in the group room and just get them to really physically complain like fuck, you know. And it's a great way of breaking the resistance. You know, it breaks the resistance when you can really act it out and go fully into it. So that's another area of bioenergetics. I'm going to be categorizing all this stuff in my book. Good to talk about it. It helps build up my own enthusiasm to keep going with it. I know once I start and get into it, I'll be quite rigorous and do some daily. Hi Dev, I hope you're well. Hey Jibra, long time no hear. Yes, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm living now in Brighton most of the week. Technically in Hove, I'm about 100 yards over the Brighton border into Hove, and just, you know, taking it easy. I had quite a busy January and a couple of workshops in February, but I'm just getting onto a slow track of promoting stuff and trying to put on at least one big workshop a month, you know. And get in some writing, get in some creativity, you know, get my day a bit kind of chunky in certain ways, really make sure that I get certain things done, you know, certain things done. I can be, you know, for someone who's a bloody trainer, and I am essentially, you know, and working as a therapist, I can be quite slack at times, and I do need to kick my own ass sometimes to really make sure I get stuff done. Cool, still enjoying it. That's great, man. That's great. I'm hoping to create some good, better quality content. You know, get some proper lighting and get a little bit of studio set up here. maybe one of those kind of hanging backdrops that says Devaraj Bioenergetics or something like that. I don't know, something like that, and do it a little bit better. I was chatting with a video guy who came to one of my workshops and loved it, and he was giving me some suggestions. So watch out for that. Trying to create it a bit more professional, and maybe I'll also, when I get the book more solid in my brain, sometime in the second part of this year, start to make like maybe a 28-day challenge or something like that, where people can buy video content that they download, and then it covers a lot of stuff like bio, has some theory, you know, it has some stuff for people who really want to learn body-based therapy. You know, I think that is what, you know, the core of my life work will be from that. I mean, you never know, but from here on in, you know, but I really want to get some of this stuff that I've learned down on paper, because the truth is that very little of it is, and the planet fucking needs it big time, you know. I mean, people just don't grasp basic stuff to do with the mind and the body, you know. Even people who are working as bloody therapists, even people you know, who are totally interested in this scene, just don't grasp basic stuff. And because they don't grasp basic stuff, they're also at the mercy of all sorts of appalling shite that's out there. And the planet could really do with a good grounding on how the mind and body interoperate, and how we can lose track, and how we can get ourselves back on track. So for me, I think the next year is going to be developing some of these plans, creating some courses and stuff like that. Did you ever come across the Reichian homework book, free PDF, very comprehensive? No, I'll have to look out for that, man. Yeah, feel free to, I can have a look for that, but feel free to also send me a link if you've got it, or a copy of a PDF. I'd like to have a look at that. I mean, Reichian stuff I get asked about quite a lot. I think partly because Elliot Hult's very famous YouTube guy and spokesman for young men, you know, in the States. Did some course, I think, at some point in Reichian characterology. But in truth, you know, the Reichian stuff is pretty fucking ancient, really. You know, it's pretty fucking ancient. And, you know, the kind of 5 personality stereotypes thing is a bit out of fashion these days. It's got use, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. So, you know, Wilhelm Reich was pretty, I mean, he died about, what, in the 50s or something, or 40s. It's quite old stuff. And he was certainly a massive innovator. And he was a teacher for Alexander Lowen, of course. And he was a huge innovator, Reich, you know, and a free thinker and everything, and his cloud busting and all of this. So, of course, he came to a sad end because he crossed swords with the FDA, basically, back in the 40s and 50s. You know, he'd escaped Nazi Germany and fled to America, but the Americans persecuted him as well, because the FDA, the drug companies, did not like him trying to heal people without using drugs. So he ended up in prison and died in prison, as far as I remember, poor old Reich. But, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And in a sense, that made a little bit of a martyr of him, probably kept his work a bit alive. It's been quite a thin strand if you look historically, and I'm not a historian. You know, if you look historically over the years, how, you know, body-based therapy has just managed, just by the skin of its teeth, to stay alive through each generation, essentially. It's been quite a lucky journey in many ways. On the web somewhere, I was doing it before I came across your stuff, prefer the bioenergetics, more dynamic. Well, I'll check it. I will check it out. They actually burnt all his books. Yes, I seem to recall reading that. Yeah, Reich didn't have a happy end, really. Kate Bush wrote a song about him once, Hey Cloud Busting or something. I used to write that song a long time ago when Kate Bush was really hot. But he was a good guy, you know. I don't know what kind of person he was, but he certainly stood up for what he wanted. He made this thing, the orgone accumulator. I used to fantasize about making one, you know, not fantasize about it in a sexual way, but kind of think, oh yeah, it'd be great to make an orgone accumulator. It's just mixtures of organic and inorganic materials, and it's supposed to concentrate your body energy, you know, this kind of thing. And he also made something to, you know, to bust clouds open and make it rain and things like that. And he had all these ideas, and the orgone accumulator, I think that really pissed the FDA off. So, you know, I think the main thing with these kind of bodies, you know, is that what they're really scared of is that something really works. You know, there must be a huge sense of guilt there somewhere in the drug companies, that they know somewhere that they're such bullshitters, you know. And it's not that all drugs are bullshit, of course, but there's something there where they feel really, really threatened by alternatives, you know, and they just really feel threatened by it somehow. You know, I mean, of course, for drug companies, if you look historically, I mean, America was one of the leading places in the Victorian times in the 19th century for homeopathy, of course, and for all sorts of holistic healing techniques. And then at some point, you know, the oil barons started to get into the drug business, and they applied the same techniques as they did in the oil business, which is kill all your competition, basically, just totally predatory. And nothing wrong with predatory behavior in many ways, but of course it's a bit mean to just be exerting it on all these healers. And the health business should not really be too much of a business, in my opinion. You know, keep the business where it is. 90% of stuff you can make capitalist business out of, but healthcare doesn't really work well. You know, you just see a lot of conflicts of interests, and a lot of people very ill, and a lot of bad information all over the place. Why do you reckon there is such resistance to body therapy in society when things like yoga are so popular? I mean, that's a great question. It's a great question. What I see is that, you know, yoga is more like a maintenance drug in a sense, and there's nothing wrong with yoga at all. It's great. You know, it comes from a more spiritual background originally, and the idea that the asanas, you know, the body positions, are there to kind of prepare your body for some form of spiritual enlightenment and stuff like this. If you read, you know, Patanjali and these kind of things. And I see that yoga, for women in particular, gives them really, because women have been very disempowered in our culture as I see it. And for women in particular, it really gives, like in Brighton, you know, where I'm now, is yoga all over the place and has been for decades. And it gives them in particular a real sense of control back over their body and over their life, and from that, you know, from that their life, you know, and it gives you a good feeling. But it doesn't necessarily, and it does open up your body and keep you flexible and feeling good, and you get some positivity out of it, you know, but it doesn't really go into the areas of the body specifically where there's a holding through emotions. And with body therapy, you're really working specifically in the areas where there's a lot of repression. And the truth is that our society is not really ready to do this yet. You know, it's just not quite ready. It's moving, there's change, but it's not quite ready to really look, you know, about the ego and repression, about, you know, projecting a persona out into the world and what you have to do to maintain that. You know, it's not really ready to look. You know, something like yoga does not make you look at that. Something like bioenergetics makes you look at that. You can't really just do bioenergetics and say, oh, it feels great, I'm going to keep on doing it. You know, because at some point there will be resistance because of the nature of the human ego and the human brain. So whereas something like yoga, you know, you can just be doing it for years and years and years and really enjoying it and really getting good stuff from it. But of course, it won't be taking you so deep into clearing out the bodily holding patterns, because it's simply not intended to do that. Likewise, the gym, you know, likewise running, you know, which I've been enjoying recently. You know, they're things that can give you get some real good feel good chemicals flowing in your body, but they're not really starting to clear out the deep stuff inside. You know, and our culture, the truth is, it's not really quite ready to look. People are getting more interested. You know, crisis usually makes people interested. Comfort addiction, yeah, comfort addiction is one of my favorite phrases of the moment. Comfort addiction. I mean, just seeing it in my own life, how in the mornings I can be quite motivated and just force myself in a way to start on the long bow and arches that I do. Once I'm in for a couple of minutes, then I'm in and I can do an hour or so, you know. But like later in the day, yes, I just want to be comfortable, and sometimes it's good to have to go out to the shops with my girlfriend, not just go in my t-shirt and it's like 5 degrees, you know. It takes you out of a comfort addiction straight away. And it is you know, I think comfort addiction, this will become a buzzword, but this is one of the things that will come out of YouTube, you know, which is the new mass media in waiting, as far as I'm concerned. You know, out of YouTube into the society, we have the notion of comfort addiction, basically. In fact, I might even try pushing it out there a bit myself. Back in the 90s, I sometimes ran some covert kind of poster campaigns where I'd get these fly posting companies that are mostly posting things for gigs and whatever and music, you know, to post various political slogans and stuff. But I think comfort addiction is something that is a concept that's waiting to come in, you know, like the meme, the idea of it. It's waiting to come in, comfort addiction. And once that idea kind of just reaches a certain kind of threshold level of hyper awareness, awareness in people's minds, then it spreads out from there. And that's very, very healthy as I see it. That's very healthy that people start to look and start to challenge the idea that being comfortable is the be all and end all of life, or that it's something particularly good, and that in reality, a lot of stuff can be tracked to comfort that's problematic in our society and problematic for individuals. Cold showers, that's another good way of breaking comfort addiction, another great way of breaking it, I tell you, if I was running the NHS, I would be hated universally in about a week. I'd start switching off people's hot water. I hardly use any hot water. I'm here in this flat in Brighton. My girlfriend's here, and she's Italian, so she likes a bit more warmth. But she's not by no means just totally collapsing when it's cold or whatever. She's not. She's also interested in this stuff, but she's just from a background where there was more heat most of her life. I mean, I'm also mixed race, so I'm half Iranian, and most of Iran's quite hot most of the year. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't have the heating on here. And we don't really need, it's only when you do washing up or something, but use hot water basically, you literally don't need it. And so if it was me, I'd be switching people's hot water off if I was running the NHS, because the simple truth is, if you have a cold shower every day, it's not easy to get ill. Your immune system just boosts. It just boosts. It's just much more effective and efficient, You got your immune system like a bunch of old soldiers. They used to call them Dad's Army in England, So people are like in their 40s and 50s, their immune system's all kind of collapsing and hopeless, Some predatory infection comes in, it's got no fucking chance, it just kind of collapse and yeah, you come and take over, mate. And you need an immune system that's a bit more kicking ass, like the Navy SEALs or the SAS or something, of course, what you want, Delta Force immune system, and that is what cold showers will give you, It's at some point you start to see, particularly with illness, that you really have a choice about whether you get ill or not. Last week I was feeling like, I think it was Wednesday evening, I've been traveling and working quite a lot, and I could feel it coming into my throat in the evening, this kind of slight illness in there, that feeling like there's a cold trying to get in there. And I just thought, fuck it. I got up on Thursday morning, did a 10k jog in my vest, in about 3 or 4 degrees centigrade down on the seafront, and had a cold shower after, jumped in the sea, came back and sat in a cold bath for a bit because my legs were swell after running. And that's the end of the cold, that's the end of it. That's the end of it, I mean, it's just because you just show almost your own mind that you're not going to buy this shit about illness anymore. You're not going to fucking buy it. If you put me in charge of the health service, I tell you, I would really take people on. The stuff that doctors are saying is most appalling horseshit known to man. What you need is a powerful immune system, and that you get from discomfort. And it's as simple as that. It's not rocket science either. Haven't been sick for a long time. No, that's it. I haven't had a cold for a year or two now, and I used to usually get one little bit of one. Probably saying that dangerous. I'll probably try and get it now. But what I notice when you get a cold, and people often get colds when they're working with therapy and going on a personal process, it's often there's just something in the throat that's opening up on an energetic level. The cold comes in and they kind of collapse with it, and you have to learn at some point. Maybe you will collapse a few times. It's like being in the ring with a superior boxer. They will knock you over a few times, but at some point you have to catch the pattern and understand that you don't have to be a victim of illness. A lot of illness comes around from victim mentality. It's simple as that. Simple as that. There's no doubt about it in my mind whatsoever. And you do reach a point where you realize you have a lot of control over whether you get ill or not. You really do. And it just comes from attitude and learning certain behaviors. Let's check the chat. Sam, 2024. Hey, Sam. People of IBS, what are the related emotional issues? It's not an area that people come to me for much, but of course, anything to do with the bowel and the stomach, I would normally assume is to do with anxiety, and the very idea of like irritable bowel syndrome, of course, suggests anxiety, I would think that was the main place to look for me on an emotional level, would be anxiety. And what I usually recommend long-term for anxiety from body-based therapy is a bow in the arch. If you can clear the repressed stuff out of the lower back, then I think things will move a lot, and, try to get the bowel, try to get more energy in your belly, more awareness in your belly, you know. But so you have a sense when you sit that you can breathe and feel into your belly, and it's like a presence within your experience of your body. Mike Van Basten. Hey Mike, I'm planning to buy a vibro platform. Do you think the shaking can help to remove tension, blocks the body? Thank you. Well, I've had a couple of those things in my time, actually. I remember they used to have some cheap ones, came out about 15 years ago. And I used to have a little company about 20 years ago which sold those kind of things. I got rid of the company. My sister took it on in the end. But they're one of those things that kind of feel really good when you do them a few times. But I'm not 100% convinced that they do so much, personally. I think, yes, there's certainly nothing wrong with it. But I don't know. I mean, they're one of those, I used to try them and I used to think, this is fucking great, you really think, yeah, I want to buy one of these. But then I don't know how effective they are. I think that, compared to just really practicing and training with bioenergetics, I would put far higher personally. That's just been my personal experience. And that's not to say that you might have a different result from it, But I've used the one in the gym, gym in Gillingham. I used that a bit, and I do quite enjoy it after a bit of a workout to kind of get some of my muscles loose. I have certain issues in my legs from operations when I was a kid, and it can be useful to get some of that tension out. I used to put it on 60, which was the fastest it would go, and just be on it for about 3 minutes. People would think I was a bit of a nutter. It's quite a conservative place, Gillingham, in the gym, but I don't know that it's like really a full methodology in itself. I know for some other fatigue conditions and muscular conditions it's recommended as well, so I certainly don't think it's a bad thing in any way. I hope that's useful for you, Mike. Andre, any thoughts about starting morning with some grounding? Really annoying to start with, breathing and being active while the body hasn't woken up yet, both and never standing on one leg. Well, I tend to just start with a bow and arch, staggering out of bed, half asleep, look at my phone and put the old some bow and arch music on or something and just go for it. That's me personally. And just keep breathing my way through it. Yes, the mind will make up protest narratives, but at a certain point it stops and you can just get into it. So I haven't found myself a problem with that. Certainly if you'd asked me that question a few years ago, I would say, yes, you want to start with some stretching and some blah, 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 blah. But that isn't my personal experience now, age 58. My personal experience is that you can just start and just get into it, really. Certainly, of course, if you're doing gym workouts, you need to sometimes stretch a little bit and that kind of thing. The bow, bend over, standing on one leg. Yeah, just do some exercises. And grounding generally, I mean, starting morning with some grounding. Yeah, it depends a little bit what you need in the morning. I wake up and my mind's a bit scattered, I'm a bit out of it. It's good for me to do bow and arch. Also, the belly activation I was doing for a long time in the morning, and then belly activation with bow and arch about a year ago, and then I shifted to just bow and arch around the summertime. But all of that stuff is good, and unless you've got specific problems with your body, I wouldn't worry too much about needing to have some big stretchy thing to get into it. I would just open up your breathing, breathe a bit more deeply through the mouth, try to breathe down into your belly, and just go for it. Belly activation can be good for a while to get some. But what you really need, you see, is a sense of feeling down in your gut. Once you've got that, you're in some ways you're 3/4 of the way home. Once you can get energy and feeling into your belly, by working at it, then you're a long way home, because you'll always have that as a resource, and you can use that when you're doing other bioenergetic postures. Breathing and feeling into your belly helps everything to move. It's like without the belly, the mind is trying to do everything. It's trying to do everything because it thinks it has to. And as soon as the belly starts to become active, an immense level of relaxation starts to take place, because your mind gets it. It's like, fuck, I've taken on like 27 jobs that I wasn't supposed to do. Like some overly kind of anxious office worker that's trying to please about 4 different bosses, desperately charging about the place, giving themselves chronic stress, happens because that's what this mind believes it has to do this. But it has to work and work and work and do all these things. And actually, most of the things that it's trying to do are the job of the belly anyway. But it's simply that the culture we're living in, 99.9% of people are completely disconnected from that energy center, totally disconnected. So they're left scrabbling about trying to do things with their mind all the time because they don't have the gut. But if you focus on that, it will come back. It will come back, you know. Doesn't matter if you're young or old, male or female or whatever. If you focus on the belly, it will come back. So it can be really useful in the mornings to try and get your belly active as well. And once it is active, then you know you can work with other exercises. So maybe that could be useful for you. I hope it helps anyway. Okay, guys, I'm going to do a few more minutes. So if you're sitting there and you've got a little question, just do feel free to stick it out. Otherwise, Spiritual Boot Camp is coming up this weekend. That's the third time I've run that group, and I love that group. It's nice to have 3 days to really get in with people and bioenergetics and just see where people are at and what can support them to go deeper and to have a more fulfilling life, or to overcome stuff that's really holding them back in life, you know. So I love to run workshops like that, and it's fully residential process work. It's great. It's great to do. There is something very nourishing about being a therapist and working with the body in this way. And I think a big part of what I'll be doing in the next decade is around training people to be like that, so they can also have the experience, you know, getting out into the world and really, you know, supporting people to go deeper, Like I say, we're waiting for a real movement to happen somewhere. It seems like every 5 or 10 years, something new comes along. You know, we had yoga maybe 20 years ago, and we had mindfulness about 10 years ago. A lot of people are into fitness and stuff like that, but no one's really started to talk about repression on a big level, you know, outside of mainstream psychology, essentially. But at some point, I think that will come out into understanding the ego, and repression will come out into popular psychology. I'm doing my bit as much as I can to bring it out. And when that happens and people start to realize, you know, that they're living this addictive life, trying to put an image out there into the world and what effect that's having on their life, actually, you know, when people realize that, then, you know, you never know when some mass movement can start. Maybe it won't be in my lifetime. Maybe it will never happen. Maybe it'll start happening tomorrow. We don't know. But all you can do is put it out and go for it. No worries, guys. Hey, Lucius. Yeah, man. I thought of that intuitively while I was doing the bow and arch. I've been so rabid with the bow and arch for the last 8 months. I suddenly thought, let's chuck a little bit of floor work in it as well. You know, let's chuck a little bit of floor work in it and do it the kind of bioenergetic way. So it's not the normal cobra, not quite the normal dog, very similar. But that's it's interesting. Give it a go. I'll be interested to see what you think of it. Okay, guys, I'll give it another 30 seconds if anyone's got a desperate, burning question. Otherwise, feel free to like and subscribe. And I should be seeing you all next week. Yes, I think Tuesday evening is probably pretty good next week for me. So either be here or in Leela. But do have a good week and do stick with it, hey? Do stick with it. Don't be listening to too much bullshit from your own mind, you know. Focus on a practice, get some commitment going in your life. What I like about this challenge bioenergetics is that it does support people to commit, because it puts you in pain straight away early, and then you have the chance to go through that and you can develop willpower. You know, we're living in a different generation now with so much technology, and the possibilities for kind of masses of people, you know, developing themselves without having to go to groups are there. But actually the main thing that has to come is the willpower. That's what I've learned, is that what you need first. It's all very well learning exercises, but actually need exercises which develop both willpower. And so I'm looking at that all the time, you know, because if we can get that going, then on the back of that, once you've got the willpower, then all the rest of the development can follow along, and people can live really deep, fulfilled lives. And there's a possibility that, you know, even through just doing stuff via the internet, you could have an amazing fucking time, amazing existence, and clear and heal your body very deeply without having to always go to workshops or stuff where, you know, there's not many therapists available, and then there's not many people don't have the money and all of this, you know. So the willpower is the first thing, and that is part of my work, really looking at exercises that can get that willpower going, so that you keep going through something even when your mind is telling you to stop. and you have a positive experience and a learning experience. Okay, that's enough for me for this week. Look forward to seeing some of you next Tuesday. And remember, keep doing the bioenergetics. Don't listen to too much blah blah from your own mind. Just keep going for it. And have an awesome week, guys. I'll speak to you later.